So today we're going to be making a self-portrait inspired by Frida Kahlo. We're going to start off with a picture of ourselves, and then we're going to place a clear transparency on top of it like this. Then we're going to take a fine point Sharpie, and we're going to start to trace the outlines of our face. So I would start with the outlines of your face, maybe your hair next. And then we'll come back later and do the details. So right now I'm drawing the outlines of like my hair. Notice I'm not getting any of the details right now. That's what we're going to come back at the end, and we're going to add those details. We're just focusing on the outlines. When tracing the nose, I would make sure to trace the bottom part of your nose and then only one side of your nose. It just kind of looks nicer this way. And with the mouth, I would trace like your lips first. Make sure to get those little indents on the side of like your mouth. I think those really make a picture look like you. And when tracing the teeth, I wouldn't trace individual teeth. I would just trace like the bottom and the top, like the shapes at the bottom and the top. That way, it could look kind of creepy if you draw every single individual tooth. Some more of those like smile lines. It helps it look more like you and the inside of your ears. Now I'm gonna trace like my dress that I have on, my shoulders. But I'm not going to trace everything in the picture, and you don't have to. I'm just tracing the things that I want to show up in my portrait. Now I'm going back and adding more of the texture to my hair, different lines that show the waves in my hair. This is really important to make it actually look like hair and not just something like on your head. So you can take the transparency off of your picture and put it on a piece of white paper, and that's going to show us what your picture is going to look like. So you might want to add some details or change something if maybe you forgot to trace like an eye or something like that. Now we're going to paint this. We're going to use an egg carton full of paint, and we are going to use water to wash off our brush. So every time you want to get a new color, make sure you wash off your brush. We're going to be mixing the colors on a paper plate. So I'm going to make pink. So I need some white and a little bit of red to mix my pink on the paint palette before I paint it onto my self-portrait. Keep in mind, you don't have to use like normal colors like skin tones, so that's why I'm using pink, but I flipped it over because we traced one side with Sharpie, and so we are going to paint the back side of this so that all of our Sharpie lines will stay nice and crisp and like clean, and we can just kind of paint the back of the transparency. So I'm making sure that I'm not painting like my eyebrows or my eyes or my mouth. I'm making sure I'm just painting the skin. Make sure you wash your brush before you get another color. And for these tiny details, you might have to get a smaller brush. I think right around here I got paint on my teeth. And if you want your teeth to be white, it's really important to not get any like pink paint or any other color on those areas. And if you see like there's a spot on my dress where it's kind of clear and transparent, you might have to do 2 coats if you want to cover that area entirely, but it's all up to you. Now I'm making some purple for my hair, and my hair is not purple, but I really like these colors, this color combination, and this is a chance to have fun with just painting these crazy colors. And you see it's still kind of clear on my hair. I'm probably going to have to come back and paint over that area. You can also use the back of your paintbrush to make details, like I made some wavy details in my hair. You could add patterns to your clothes this way. It's just a way to create texture and make your painting more interesting. Make sure to fill in all of that white space because anywhere that you don't paint is going to be clear. But you can leave it clear if it's intentional, but it might look messy if you leave like a bunch of clear, empty spots. I went and got a teeny tiny paintbrush so I could paint my eyebrows. You guys might have to swap if you have a larger paintbrush, swap with somebody who has a smaller one. And then it's really important to use white to paint like your eyes and your teeth, because you can see right now it's clear, right? I didn't paint white behind my teeth or my eyes, so it's kind of going to look weird if I don't do that. And once again, use a tiny paintbrush for this part. I forgot to paint my arms. And I also forgot to wash my brush, and now I have a purple arm. So now we are going to paint the background for our self-portrait. And you can use just a bunch of colors if you want to. You could add patterns in the background. You can decorate it really any way that you want to. I kind of watered down my paint and kind of made it look more like a watercolor. And I kind of just spread a bunch of purple around my paper in no particular way. But the goal is to fill in like all the white space except for the part where your self-portrait is going to go, because when you have white space in a painting, it kind of makes it look unfinished and like you didn't think out like every step for the painting. So the goal for this is to paint everything on your paper but with the area where your portrait is going to be. So now I'm coming in with like a pink or a red to add some more details. This is kind of just abstract, which means it doesn't have any, it's not representing anything. It's just lines, some wavy lines. I think I'm going to add some polka dots. Just something to make it more visually interesting than just a purple background. I think I had too much white space, so now I'm adding a little more purple to fill in all that white space. So if you remember, we filled out a self-portrait planning sheet where you made 3 symbols. This was to help you think of the symbols you're going to add to your self-portrait. You can use collage, so I found this, like if you play an instrument, you could cut out an instrument out of a magazine, or just flip through a couple different magazines and maybe find some things that describe you or like represent things that you do, things that you like, and cut those out. That's one option. But the other option is to draw them, and I think this is more of an interesting way to add your own touch to your artwork. So what I'm gonna do is just draw it in Sharpie. You might want to draw it in pencil first. And I'm drawing a tent because I like to camp. I'm gonna draw some trees. Draw a little moon. Now I'm drawing a camera because I like photography. And I have like 10 vintage cameras. That's something that I've started to collect. So I just love cameras and photography. Then I'm drawing a paint palette because, you know, paint palettes represent art, and I'm an art teacher. A little paintbrush with some paint on it. So then you're going to cut out your symbols either out of a magazine or cut out your drawings that you've made. I'm going to come back later and cut off all the extra paper. And keep in mind, you can have more than 3 symbols as well. This is just like the minimum. You have to have 3. So the next step is I would take colored pencils. I think you can get a more detailed drawing on these than if you tried to paint them. So I'm going in with some yellow colored pencil, and I got to fill in all that white space to make it look nice and finished. So now that I've colored all of my symbols, I cut off all the excess like white paper just so it doesn't look like you just cut it and glued it on your painting. But that's what we are going to do. We're going to glue these symbols onto our background next. So I'm just going to take a glue stick and put glue on the back of my symbol. Make sure it's going to stick to my background. Make sure your background is dry and you didn't just paint it too. So then I'm going to add a lot of glue in each corner, and you need to put a lot of glue so that your transparency is going to stick, because we're going to place the transparency on top of our background, and that's how we're going to attach them together, is by gluing it. So there is the finished product. I kind of rushed through this one for the demo. This is the one that I took more time on my symbols and my background. And I just think it's more detailed, and I hope yours will look more detailed like this one.